Welcome back to another episode of the Sky Society podcast. Today I'm chatting with Lauren Denowitz. She is the Global Director of Entertainment at AB InBev, focusing more on Stella Artois. So welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you on the podcast and jump through your career journey to your new role, which you've only been in for a couple months, but sounds super exciting. So I'm eager to get there. But before we jump into your current role, if you want to just touch on it high level, but tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Who am I? I am an East Coast girl, born and bred. I woke up. I was born in Connecticut. And did a little stint in the Midwest for college, went to University of Michigan, studied political science there, and then did effectively nothing with that poli-sci degree and moved into marketing right after I graduated, and have been working in consumer packaged goods marketing for the last 10 years. So it's been a good run. And that is, I guess, a little bit about me in a nutshell. So yeah, marketing gal through and through. And I'm based in New York City, where I've lived for the past 10 years.
Amazing. Where were you before New York?
I was New York since Michigan. So
Okay.
I bounced Connecticut, Michigan, back to the East Coast. We loved Michigan, but everyone there is a little too nice. I don't think that my East Coast I had landed too well in Michigan. So we flocked back here.
Awesome. So your degree was not at all in marketing. Did you know out of college that is where you were going to go, or did it just kind of stumble upon you?
It's a good question. I went into college thinking I was going to be a doctor. Found out that the science labs were Friday mornings, and at that point I was more into going out on Thursday nights. So I quickly forewent that career path, and honestly then bounced around. I was thinking about doing econ. I was thinking about doing psych, and it got far enough along that basically the University of Michigan said to me, you're about to graduate with a general studies degree and only the football team is allowed to do that. And you are not on the football team. So I had taken a bunch of poli-sci classes. I really had enjoyed them. It was a lot of just papers and learning about kind of the art of negotiation. And I thought that was really interesting. And so ended up choosing poli-sci, partially because I liked it, partially because it was the degree that required the fewest amount of credits. And I had taken such a wide variety that I sort of just needed to choose and jump in. And so, graduated with a poli-sci degree. And at the end of my kind of college journey, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I literally went into Ask Jeeves, and I know I'm dating myself with that one, but was like, what do people do that graduate with a poli-sci degree and don't go into political science or law? And the top two answers that I found were marketing and commercial real estate. So I chose the former, but I always joke that potentially the latter is me in my next life. So that was sort of how I started to think maybe marketing's for me. And art of persuasion is what poli-sci is all about. So use those skills to negotiate my way into my first job, which was in marketing at Phillips. So yeah, I took one marketing class when I was in undergrad, marketing 101, and that was my degree that then kicked off my now 10-year marketing career. So wow. Yes, kind of a funny backstory.
One of the cool things about marketing, though, is that so many people come from diverse backgrounds. I feel like very few marketers maybe necessarily went to college for marketing. You did mention, though, that you persuaded your way into Phillips. Can you touch a little bit more on that?
A bit of an exaggeration, but I think that a lot of what poli-sci taught me was how to write and speak persuasively. I was not taking tests really. You were writing papers and trying to figure out what's the best way to position things, which is effectively what a lot of marketing is about as well. And it's, you as a person are a brand. You have to figure out how to position and how to market yourself. So that was kind of poli-sci / marketing 101 was figuring out how to brand Lauren Denowitz as I was graduating from college and figure out how to best frame my skill set and personality and, value set so that it was appealing to a marketing audience at Philips.
Is personal branding something you still work on today?
Absolutely. I think if you're not thinking about your personal brand, what are you thinking about? And, I don't think it's necessarily that you need to think about your personal brand to climb the corporate ladder or whatever, but your personal brand is just, identifying who are you, what makes you, what makes your value proposition different from your friends, your best friends. Why would people want to hang out with you? And what value do you kind of add, and what do you look for out of the people that you surround yourself with? So I think it's good to just know who you are and what you want and who you want to surround yourself. So everyone's kind of thinking about personal brands to some degree, whether or not they realize it or not. But I think that the people who are the most thoughtful about it are probably the most self-aware. Maybe we like self-awareness. So
yes, we do.
I tend to try to find those folks.
Okay, so I think this is something that is really important, especially when maybe you're trying to transition into marketing or go into a new role where you may not have just a ton of experience, that your personal branding is something that could help you stand out by really positioning yourself as a leader in insert wherever your strengths lie. So I love that you said that, and that, it's still something that you have focus on today. And I know we'll kind of get later into your career of how that contributed to your current switch. So I think that, yeah, personal branding is definitely something to focus on, even when you're young, which it looks like what you did. Do you have I know you mentioned some of the things to think about, but do you have any other advice when it comes to personal branding for women who are kind of starting their marketing careers?
I think when you're thinking about brands in general, it's important to think about what is your differentiating factor, and lean on that and use it to sell not sell yourself sounds bad, but sell to an audience of interested people. And I think that how that applies to me to your personal brand is that everyone is different. And if you try to go and be a brand that you admire, but that you're not, and that you can't authentically be, consumers or friends or colleagues or hiring managers are gonna sniff it out. They always do. So, the trick is be yourself, figure out what makes you different, figure out what is the thing that you can bring to the table. And that just might be your quirky personality, but it could also be your intensely, driven, or you are, super good at data. I don't know, but think about the things that you can bring and don't try to fake it. Faking it is different than learning it and trying to make that part of your brand. But I think that, what differentiates you is the important thing to identify and then be able to kind of lean into.
Yeah, being authentic and then focusing on that differentiating factor, I think, is so important for standing out in job applications. So love that you mentioned that. Okay, I feel like maybe we could continue with this authenticity trend, but while you were at Philips, you founded your own business. Super different from what you were doing in that space. So you founded Friends with Forks, which is a New York-based food blog, which you grew to over 25,000 followers on Instagram. Can you tell me about how you got started with that?
Sure. I got hungry and
as we do.
I honestly, the origin story was I was eating fried chicken with some girlfriends at Root and Bone, which is a restaurant in New York City that just closed down, actually. And we were all kind of joking / complaining about the fact that we all love to take pictures of food. This is back in like 2013. So this is before like food bloggers and food blogging was such a thing. But we kept posting pictures of our food on our own personal channels. And some of our friends, specifically of the male varietal, were like, ugh, like, I don't want to see this content. And we were kind of like, all right, well, some people probably do. So we sat there on a Sunday afternoon and said, let's start our own food blog. And those who care will follow. And we left brunch and sat on our couches and texted about potential names. And I think it was me who came up with Friends with Forks. Not going to take credit, because if I'm lying right now, then my co-founders will give me a lot of shit. But 24 hours later, we had Friends with Forks, and it was just kind of a passion project for us. And it was a fun way for us to gather and hang out as friends, but also, as we started to pick up traction, and we honestly were one of the first food blogs that hit New York City. And as a result, we ended up on distribution lists with some of the biggest names in food blogging today. They clearly stuck to that and made that their number one, career focus. The three of us, not as much, but it was great. And it, for a while, and still to this day, got us traveling around New York City, trying different foods, some of them for free, which was amazing. People always say, like, did you monetize? Do you get paid for this? My answer was like, no, but being paid in free food is honestly better. And yeah, it kind of, to the conversation we were just having, like, really felt like it rounded out my personal brand. I'm a huge foodie. I'm a huge like planner. So I love to, schedule reservations and figure out where we're going to go and how are we going to tackle my long list of restaurants that I want to try. So it was just kind of a really fun passion project that, as you said, did catch on. And we, at our peak, we're at like 30,000 followers. I'll complain like every blogger does about the Instagram algorithm and how it kind of hurt us a little bit. My co-founders both went off to business school for marketing, which left me in New York City eating for free. So when that happened, it did kind of slow a bit, but honestly, we are still kicking and still posting, and I'm still eating. So yeah, it's just been a really fun thing to have along the side. And it does, check the box of marketing. It also checks the box of foodie. So it's kind of the perfect combination of all of the things that I like.
What a fun story, and what a cool little side hustle to have, because it like just puts you directly doing what you love, which is like you said, eating, and then also getting to pair it with your career, which is marketing. I'm curious, did what you did here with Friends with Forks help you like in your career? I know your next move later was to Anheuser-Busch. Was that something that you talked about in interviews?
Interesting enough. I didn't talk about it in the interviews, but I remember that totally coincidentally, like my first month on the job, Bud Light reached out to Friends with Forks, having no idea that like they had just hired the founder of the company and asked us to do a promotion. And I walked upstairs and said to my new friend on Bud Light, I was like, did you know? She's like, literally had no clue this was you, like didn't even know that you had so no. But to the question of did it inform how I did marketing at Anheuser-Busch? Probably not. I think it's more the reverse, or how Philip's marketing kind of helped us think about how to grow this blog. And, it was never something we took too seriously, but we did set up, a Gmail account, and we were communicating with business and restaurant owners. And, we were doing at some points like affiliate links for Blue Apron and a bunch of businesses. So we really did have to think about like, how do you run this little business, and how do you, present yourselves in a way that people want to work with you and want to collaborate. And so I think it just, once again, kind of came back to art of persuasion, brand building, and how you want to market yourself. So a little bit of the through line to everything we've been talking about. But yeah, I think everything, if you find things that align with your passion, usually you're able to kind of pull in some of the skills from all of those different areas and make them work and cross-pollinate your skills there.
Yeah, I think like the way you did it is probably one of the most fun ways to get to learn, and then also get to do something that you're passionate about. I was just in New York a couple weeks ago for my sister's birthday. Random off topic career question, but any like favorite restaurant recommendations in New York?
Oh my God. I love this question, but I hate this question because whenever
Because there's so many you want to give.
yes. Um, my favorite restaurant, period, is a restaurant called P.O.P.O. There's a few of them in the city, but they're like nothing fancy, nothing special, hole in the wall, Peruvian food.
Oh,
And
I'm
it's
half Peruvian. That's like
oh my, okay.
amazing.
Well,
I
you
should have been there.
truly run. It's amazing. I actually just ordered a whole like buffet of it for the people in my office because I was like, I need you people to like this food so that we can go for lunch more often. But it's my birthday ritual. Me and my girlfriends order POPO every year. And so it's truly just become a part of my life. If anyone ever breaks into my apartment, my Wi-Fi password is POPO. So truly that is my number one recommendation, but I will do a soft pitch for a restaurant I went to last night, which is called No, which was very good Korean food. So posted that on Friends with Forks, got a lot of love. You should go.
All right. Well, I'll have to check out Friends with Forks next time I'm in New York for some good recs.
Yes, always here to help.
Okay, so you're at Phillips, you start this blog, you're getting some traction, and you were at Phillips for 2 years, and you left. By the time that you left, you started as a marketing associate, you grew to a marketing manager, and then you left to go over to Anheuser-Busch. So you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that you are in the CPG category, the consumer products goods. Can you, for those who don't know, can you describe a little bit about what that industry is?
Essentially it's goods that you can buy off of the shelf. So at Philips, I was working on Philips Avent, which is their mother and child care brand. Out of college, I was an expert on breast pumps and baby bottles and pacifiers, and those are all considered consumer packaged goods. So is Bud Light and Budweiser. So is Campbell's Soup. So it's really anything that you can go into the store and buy. And there's a lot of similarity in terms of the marketing style that you need to deploy for consumer packaged goods. And it's different versus, what you would deploy in terms of marketing for a service. Just there's nuances there. You're not necessarily thinking about the retail aspect and how to, sell through the line, as we say. For me, there is something very special about being able to walk into a store and say, I made that. Like I physically brought that thing from inception on a PowerPoint into Bye Bye Baby or into, your beer aisle and Dwayne Reed. And so I personally have always kind of preferred that type of marketing. And that's kind of kept me in the space for a while. Of course, I say that, and I'm now in a role, which we'll get to, that's in the CPG space because I still work for a brewery and a brewing company, but it is in the entertainment space, which is a little bit of a different proposition.
Yes. I had you explain that just because one of the things that a lot of women starting in marketing, they want, maybe working at a company like Anheuser-Busch is a dream, but getting there like right immediately out of college or right when they're starting is a little bit harder. But you could work at other companies that are in that consumer packaged goods space where you can get experience and then get those transferable skills to then go and work at whatever big name CPG company you want to later on.
Totally. And I will say to that comment, a lot of people always say to me, oh my God, you work in beer. Is that so fun? And of course, I honestly really, truly love my job and it is so fun, but it's a lot of the same work that I was doing when I was working in the baby category. It's a lot of PowerPoints. It's a lot of Excel. So to your point, like the skills are very transferable. The products and the pictures on your PowerPoint will change, but ultimately you're trying to figure out what is the consumer problem or challenge and how can my brand insert ourselves? How do we communicate that? And then let's get it on a shelf and hopefully those things turn, right? So yes, I think getting your hands dirty in any type of CPG marketing will help you throughout your journey within the CPG space.
So tell me a little bit about your journey through Anheuser-Busch, because you were there, you were at Phillips for 2 years, you were at Anheuser-Busch for a while. don't
I was
remember how
actually at
many.
Phillips for 4
Oh, you were
years.
at Phillips for 4 years. Sorry about that.
Yes. Yes. No, you're fine. Yeah, so I was at Phillips for 4 years. I was reverse commuting out of New York to Connecticut on the train, and I was like, "There's got to be more to life than living the life that my father lived." You know, commuting for round trip 3 hours every day, and had my eyes set on Anheuser-Busch, which was located in New York City. So instead of a hour and a half train out there, it was a nice 20-minute walk. And leaned on my Michigan network to help me get that job. Reached out to a econ friend who was there at the time, and 7 interviews later, I started at ABI.
7 interviews.
It was a doozy of a process, I will say. We don't make it super easy at ABI, but they do hire well. They hire incredible people, but they don't make it easy. So yeah, I started there in 2017. And I actually started on the team, or a team that was at the time called the regional brands team. So they were brands that were not as big as the Bud Lights or the Budweisers or Stellas of the world, which are, some of the brands that ABI is best known for. But they're still big brands that are very meaningful in the regions in which they kind of exist. So my brands were Landshark Lager and Beck's. And both of those brands were biggest on the North and South East Coast. So that was sort of my region. But the interesting thing about these brands were that, they're small enough that the brand manager and brand management for these brands was one person. So, coming from Phillips, where, the marketing teams were set up very differently, I was managing at Phillips the full toddler cup and the full gift set portfolio through the line. I was working with the demand planners. I was doing the marketing. I was working with the sales team on my line. Whereas at ABI, on the traditional brand teams, and I think this is interesting for folks who are new in marketing to just hear how different companies set up their marketing teams differently. At ABI, the teams are not that you own a brand and everything about it. You are on the communications team, or you are on the media team, or you are on the retail team. So it was very interesting. But for me to learn that, at the majority of the jobs at ABI, you'd have to kind of become a specialist, but I was coming from more of a generalist world. However, the regional brands jobs, because they were one person, you were expected to do everything. So I got to apply my generalist type of knowledge into the world of ABI, which was, I think, very smart on behalf of the hiring management team and HR to identify that I knew a little bit about a lot and put me in, one of the roles where I could apply that same type of, knowledge set. So my first job at ABI was regional brands, and I was doing everything for these brands. As I said, comms, above the line, as we say, below the line, innovation, and it was awesome. It was a great way to learn how a different company did marketing in all facets of marketing. But while there, I realized that I wanted to specialize, and that ABI was a great opportunity on most of their brand teams to enable me to specialize. And I really had an interest in the communications space. And I also really had an interest in the brand Stella Artois. It was kind of the brand that I'd always dreamed of working on when I thought about working at Anheuser-Busch. And as luck had it, there was a role on the Stella Artois team in the communications pillar open. And so after a year and a half, I moved over to the Stella team, where I then stayed for 3.5 years, kind of climbing my way up the ranks of the Stella communications pillar. And then ultimately in the summer of 2021, the VP of the brand left, and I got the call saying, we would love you to take over the full marketing for Stella Artois in the US, which was a call I was never expecting upon my boss's departure. Was very humbled and flattering, and scared shitless. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this podcast, but just did. And so, yeah, then, years later, I found myself getting to lead marketing for the brand that I'd always wanted to work on when I started at the company. So that was very cool.
Let me pause you before you keep going.
Yes,
so you, Well, you went over a ton in your career. So you mentioned that your boss left and you were the one who got the call to get this insane promotion. And I'm sure there were other people at the company that were potentially in the running for that position. What do you think you did to put yourself in a position to be the one that they chose, or kind of how did you set yourself up to be the clear choice for that promotion?
I think that something that helped my case was that I had been on Stella for several years at that point. So I really did have a good understanding of the brand. Yes, it was kind of more so from the communications pillar, but I think comms is very linked to the brand strategy. And so I had a good sense of how everything, needed to drive on Stella and what all of the different elements needed to work towards, not just communications. And then I think pair that with the fact that I did have that kind of generalist background from Philips, where I did a little bit of everything. On Landshark, it was a microcosm, right? It was a smaller brand, but I had experience even at Anheuser-Busch working on innovation, working on trade, working on media. And so, yes, it was a much bigger scale to do that for Stella. But I had a sense of what needed to happen, and I could apply the skills from my last jobs here. And I think it was really, the combination of the two of those that, did make me a candidate that they felt comfortable enough giving the shot to take this on. And I will say ABI is very good at leaning into their people and giving them a chance to take on stretch opportunities. So I feel fortunate that they in that moment allowed me to take that role on and take that stretch opportunity.
Yeah, that had to be an insane call to receive. I can only imagine what that must
I
have
was
felt
walking
like.
to a haircut, and my haircutter then got to hear me. I think my haircutter knew before my parents knew. I was like, I'm talk this out with you. So yeah, walked out of there with a fresh new haircut and fresh new job. It's a very exciting day.
That's a vibe.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to touch on before we moved on to the promotion you got after that was your Super Bowl campaign with Stella Artois. If you could touch on some of the work you did there.
Sure. This was the first year in a while that I actually didn't work on a Super Bowl campaign for Stella, and it felt wild. But yeah, I was very fortunate. I think I worked on 3 Super Bowl campaigns in my time on the brand. My first one was my favorite. I'm actually looking at the little memento that I took away from that set right now. But it was a campaign that we did with Sarah Jessica Parker and Jeff Bridges, who are known for playing Carrie Bradshaw and The Dude, both of whom have kind of an iconic drink. So Carrie's known for the Cosmo and The Dude is known for the White Russian. And in this commercial, they both end up changing up their usual, was the name of the commercial, for a Stella Artois. And it was actually a Better World campaign, as we call it. So for every Stella that was bought from January, which is around the time that you start doing your Super Bowl promotion, through the end of the first quarter, so like end of March, every Stella purchased triggered a donation to water.org, which is an organization that is dedicated to helping allow clean water access for people in need. And so, they were drinking Stellas on the Super Bowl campaign, and, it was an awesome commercial. It was my first ever communications campaign. So you can imagine, it was drinking from the fire hose. When I was given the Stella job, they said, the senior director is going on maternity today. Your VP is going out of maternity in 2 months. Your president is joining the company, or the US company, but is currently stuck in Korea. So you're going to do a Super Bowl campaign. And that was how I started my communications journey. Honestly, it was horrendous through the process, but looking back, I wouldn't have done it any other way, because man, I learned communications so quickly, and learned the worst and the hardest type of comms campaign you can ever work on. I say worst, but I really mean best. And from there, I won't say it was smooth sailing, but it was not as chaotic. So you always remember your first, and that was
Yes.
a one.
And did you get to meet Sarah Jessica Parker?
I sure did.
How was that?
I did a little bit of what you just did. I
That's literally what I would
lost
be.
my words. I was like, hi, big fan. But yeah, she ended up, so Stella is known for the chalice, which is the glassware that it's served in. Everyone calls it the goblet. It's the fancy glass that you see in restaurants. But I got a signed chalice at the end of the shoot from
Oh
her
my
and
gosh.
Jeff Bridges, and it's currently sitting in like a case that sits above my refrigerator in New York City. So I'm glancing at it right now and feels very full circle. So yeah.
Well, you're giving me like, just hearing that story gives me chills, and I feel like it's such a one example of the cool thing that you get to work on when you're working in marketing. Like, what an absolute dream to be able to be the one to put that together. The amount of work that must have take is astronomical, but now you get to look at your memento, your chalice, and get to look back on that and just think of all the hard work that you did that paid off. And then it looks like you got to do a couple more Super Bowl commercials, which just, yeah, sounds super exciting.
Yes, icing on the cake. But yeah, marketing is by far the most fun. Everyone is always asking the marketing folks for the tickets or the access. So
Yes.
I don't take that for granted at all.
All right. So you got promoted. So I think we're at your senior director role. That's what you just mentioned, getting that promotion. So then tell me about your next move to head of marketing.
So the senior director
That was the
head of marketing.
okay.
Yes. So actually my latest new move was something that I took on as of August of this year. So 3.5 years after my first day on Stella, and Stella was still and is still my favorite brand. But I kind of thought to myself, I would love to wake up every day and think about something that's not Stella Artois. And I knew I was ready for a change. I didn't really know what I was looking for in that change. So, I had to do a good amount of soul searching. I actually sought out a career coach at that time just to help, to have someone help me think through, what I was looking for. And I think help me better articulate to people what I was looking for, which, very important, personal branding. I was struggling a bit.
So I'm gonna interrupt you there just because I want to touch on that career coach thing for a second. So you mentioned that you wanted a career coach to help you figure out what your goals were. What was your process of finding one, and kind of what did it look like working with a career coach?
I found her through a friend who had mentioned that she, over drinks, said she was in a similar point in her career, was looking to do something. And, it was funny to me because this gal always seemed like she knew exactly what she was going to do next in her career. And I was almost a little taken aback that she was working with this career coach. And I thought to myself, if she can learn something from a career coach, I certainly think that I can as well. So I got her name. I have since given it to everyone. I will shout out Kat right now. She's incredible. Meeting with her on Friday. So I'm still working with her. And I think it's a good practice, something I wish I had started earlier, to meet with a career coach, because there's so much that you can learn. But I specifically turned to the coach at this point for helping me figure out what did I want to do next. And part of that, as the coach helped me understand, was trying to figure out what were my values. What did I really value in a job? And actually, one of the reframes that she provided was, it's not just what do you value in a job, it's like, what do you value as a person? Because you're a person when you walk into your job. So you need it to check your person boxes, right? First and foremost. So we spent a lot of time. It's a really interesting process. Essentially, she asks you a few questions and then just listens to you ramble, and I can talk to a rock. So I love that.
It's like a therapist, but career oriented.
I would do it on the same day as my therapist. I'd be like, I feel like I'm having the same conversation twice. But basically she listens to your stories and listens to the challenges you've overcome and the things that really get you excited, both in your personal and professional life, and kind of starts to pull apart themes, and kind of just writes down some words that really seem to resonate and come through in your storytelling. And ultimately we whittled down hours of storytelling to 5 words and 5 values for me. And it was very interesting because I say to people all the time, I'm not sure if I would have said yes to the job that I said yes to in August had I not done that exercise, because the job that was presented didn't check all of the boxes that I kind of went into that conversation thinking I need to do this, I need to do this. But I then realized in a very non-traditional ways, it checked some of those value boxes for me. And I realized that I could kind of get what I wanted in a way that I was not expecting, but I think would still, make me happy and make me feel challenged and fulfilled. And so I think going at it from a values standpoint is very interesting. And, being able to weave some of your value propositions and what you find important into your interview process, just to help people understand, who are you? Like, what do you really care about? And what are you going to bring to the table because you value it? I think is a very helpful strategy. It'll help with, you thinking through your life, but it'll also help with you interviewing and you, just figuring out what is your, as we said, your differentiator. And so was a great experience. And as I said, still working with the coach just on evolving challenges.
Wow, that's super beautiful, Lauren. I'm glad that you opened up about how those values really helped you make that choice, because I think it's something that we often think of last, of like our personal values, and that often gets like pushed to the side and other things come first, like a higher title or a bigger salary, and those things can absolutely like fit into your values. But I think that's a very interesting perspective on like making the career choice, and it looks like it led you to an opportunity that you wouldn't have like normally accepted. And so I'm definitely very intrigued by that. And I think maybe people listening can maybe look to turning to like help if you're feeling really stuck, that you don't actually have to go through and make those decisions alone.
Yes, absolutely. And I think she'd be okay with me saying that I can give Kat's information to anyone. So if you're looking for a coach, she does it via Zoom and would be happy to help. But I'm sure there's plenty of amazing coaches out there. I do know that sometimes, though, the biggest challenge is you don't know that there's resources out there to help you. So hopefully helping people understand that there are people whose job it is to help you think through what the F to do with your life. Hopefully that helps someone.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so tell me about your new exciting new role.
Sure. So my new role is the head of owned entertainment at Anheuser-Busch. I've moved over to our global office, which is actually also based in New York City, which is where the US headquarters are as well. But it is a new position that has just been added at the global level. It was quite funny when I was interviewing for this job. My now boss said to me, I think most people would run away from this job because it is so new for this company and we don't know how to steer you, right? Like this is uncharted territories. And we're not going to be able to help you like we can help a lot of other people. But, one of the things that my career coach helped me identify that I was very good at, and I think it's a word that I was dancing around but had not really been able to articulate myself until I met with the coach, was that I'm very resourceful. And so, I think part of that came from the fact that I had these quote unquote generalist type of jobs where I had to do a little bit of everything on these brands. So jack of all trades, master of none, but I've mastered how to be a generalist, I guess. And so I think with that came resourcefulness, and the idea of starting something from scratch and learning how to do it for myself, but also for the company, was something I valued and something that I actually found to be quite exciting. So it's not traditional marketing or branding. It's really entertainment, which is a whole new beast, but it is, as a lot of people in marketing have started to identify probably, the new frontier of marketing and of branding as people become more ad averse and are spending most of their time looking and watching entertainment. So that's kind of, how brands are now having to communicate. So it's been cool to make that transition within the marketing world from, I won't say old school, because it is very much still, ads are still a huge part of the marketing wheel, but to be on the front edge of this new wave of marketing.
Can you share any details about a project that you're currently working on, or just like an example of something that this role entails?
Yeah. So, we were joking before, and I say to everyone, the hardest part of my new job is really explaining to people what my new job really is. When I'm at a bar and I want to just quickly get through the topic, I say, I'm bringing beer to Hollywood, which is not wrong.
Be that on a t-shirt.
Exactly. But it's not exactly what I'm doing. And I think leads a lot of people to believe that we're doing product placement, which we are, but it's not what I am focused on. So owned entertainment, as we call it, is, I've essentially stood up an entertainment studio that is dedicated to the sourcing, the development, and the co-financing of premium content. So television shows, movies, podcasts, and all of this content will tell stories that, as we say, showcase the power of people coming together. And the goal is for these stories to help grow the beer category. And so the way that we're hoping to do this, right, is to tell stories that have to do with social beer relevant activities like soccer, like football, like music, because the more people who are interested in those types of passions, and the more people that are likely to then engage in those passions in the real world. So for everyone who's a fan of music, you can assume they're going to go to music festivals where, as you can expect, we market and sell beer. The more people who are interested in football, right? The more people you can expect to go to the bar on a Sunday to watch the game, or go to a stadium and have season tickets where we market and sell beer. So for the marketing nerds out there, we call this kind of like a pre-funnel operation. It's not about awareness and consideration and preference. It's really about how do you make sure that there's a group of happy and social people that get together with their friends and are open to beer. Because that is one of the biggest challenges that the beer category is facing right now, is that people are not socializing the way they used to, because of COVID, because of the digitization of our world. And so one of the ways that we can grow the category is to use the art of storytelling, like we've always done, to change behavior and shift perception. So it's kind of heady, it's kind of out there, but I think after road testing kind of my job explanation to a lot of my friends, I think some of the examples that help land what we're doing here is think about the show The Queen's Gambit, and what that did for chess, right? You couldn't buy a chessboard in the US after that program launched because they were sold out. People were obsessed. Think about if you've seen the show The Bear. It's a story about, a fancy chef in New York who then comes back to Chicago to take over his now deceased brother's Italian beef shop. And you don't realize it's not really a story about an Italian beef shop. It's about the family and the people in the kitchen and how they're overcoming their challenges. But fun fact, sales of Italian beef were through the roof last summer. So it just goes to show, yes, that really marketing and entertainment, I should say, has the power to totally change how people think and what people do, including what people buy. So the thought, neither of those were done by a brand, right? But imagine if there was someone that was at the head of the studio trying to make content that would very latently, inspire people to engage in these activities, that ultimately then my marketing and sales colleagues would be at the ready to make sure that they close the loop and they sell the beer in those moments. So it's a lot of really cool, creative conversations with the folks in Hollywood, trying to figure out what's the perfect kind of, mix between ABI strategy and what people are looking to in terms of stories that will entertain them. And so my job is to find the sweet spot between those two worlds.
The two things that come into my head is that sounds like an incredibly smart marketing strategy, right? It's like, it's not even like product placement at all. This is like way beyond, like way bigger than that. That the other thing that I'm thinking is that has to be incredibly hard. Like that cannot be an easy changing consumer behavior is not easy. So those are like, that sounds like a very, very exciting thing to work on. And like, based on what you've told me, I could see why maybe this was the shift that was absolutely right for you.
Yes. It's interesting. My boss actually said something in my interview with her that was something that has stuck with me, which is, usually you hear people say, I want to be first, right? And she said, I never want to be first. I always want to be second. You want to have someone lead the way, and then you want to kind of be on the forefront, but be able to, a little bit optimize on what they've done. And that's kind of exactly what's happened. There's been a few brands, like I can count them on one hand, that have really forayed into this space. But not all of them have done it perfectly, and not that we're going to do it perfectly, but it's exciting for me to be able to kind of be in this group of first, but be able to learn from my forefathers, I guess, and optimize. And it's super new and it's super different. And I show up to work every day feeling, dumb is the wrong word, but humbled, I guess I should say, in a way that I hadn't in a long time, right? 3.5 years on Stella. So it was the perfect shift. And I will say, Hollywood is quite the place. I was expecting it to be like Entourage, and everyone to kind of be crazy and psycho and it be insane, but I'm finding a lot of really creative, really easy, good to work with people, which has made it a real joy to take this next step in my career. So yeah, lots of new.
Amazing. Well, Lauren, time flew by. I still have so many questions I want to ask you, but we are like literally right up on time here. So my last question for you before we wrap up the episode is, do you have any last advice that you want to share with women in marketing?
What would I say to women in marketing? Someone once said to me, there's a reason that kids make Christmas lists for Santa, and ask for what they want. Because if you want an easy bake oven for Christmas, unless you say that, you're not going to get the easy bake oven. And people are going to have to guess what you want. And so I think that really does apply in your career. Nobody is going to be able to guess what you want to do and just magically make that happen for you. It's really important that you know your brand and know what you want out of your next steps. And if you don't know, that's fine, but find a career coach or go through whatever exercises you can to figure it out so that you can make those asks. Because I think it's there. I've been surrounded by incredibly smart people, but I think it's the ones who know themselves and know what they want and ask for what they want that end up getting what they want. And so it's really important, just as you would make your Christmas list for Santa with your easy bake oven, like really try to apply that thinking to your own career, because it really can make all of the difference.
And then just to recap on that, there's two parts there that you mentioned that are so important. The first is figuring out what you want, because some of us may think we're vocalizing what we want, but we actually know what we want. And then the second piece is telling people what we want. And I think women can sometimes be notorious for this, where we're afraid to vocalize our wants and our needs. But it is absolutely important to say that, or else that easy bake oven example is the best, right? Santa.
I never got the easy bake oven. I've learned to ask for it.
I never got the easy bake oven either, but I'm pretty sure I did ask for that. But
Santa really did you a solid there.
Yeah. But I think it's both of those parts. And I think you got to make sure you know what you want, and you got to make sure that you're asking for it. two seemingly obvious, but often overlooked things. But again, Lauren, thank you so much for coming on the Sky Society podcast and sharing your career journey and all of your advice. This was so much fun chatting with you.
Yes, thank you for having me on. It was great chatting with you.